The morning sun poured gently into the bedroom, painting soft golden streaks across the walls and the familiar folds of our bedspread. I woke up before my fiancée, not to an alarm or a noisy city street, but because the quiet had weight today, a calm, almost sacred weight that seemed to hum in rhythm with my heartbeat. In the next room, the faint sound of the espresso machine worry softly promised the start of another ordinary day. Yet I felt that something was extraordinary in the air. 6 years we had built a life together, a life of late-night talks, road trips that ended with our hair tousled by wind, and Sunday mornings spent curled up on the sofa in silence, reading or listening to the soft hum of the world outside. And yet, today, it felt like those years were converging into one single, fragile point of anticipation. Our wedding in Italy, the decision to marry had come easily in October last year. A quiet, mutual agreement that we were ready. But planning the wedding? That had been anything but simple. Both our families were complicated, to say the least. If we had tried to invite them all, it would have been a nightmare of expectations, resentments, and long-forgotten arguments resurfacing at the worst possible moments. So we chose peace, a tiny town 4 hours away from home, somewhere we had stumbled upon during a road trip and instantly fallen in love with. Only the people who mattered most, the ones who had truly known a sour, best man and maid of honor, Mike, my fiancée's best friend since kindergarten. They had grown up together, shared secrets, scraped knees, and countless late-night pizza runs. And Courtney, his girlfriend of 3 years, someone I had grown to like actually, someone I had come to genuinely consider a friend. We had helped them move, celebrated milestones together, shared laughter that lingered in the corners of our memories. They were meant to be part of this small, intimate celebration. We had explicitly told them they could bring a significant other if they wanted, no pressure, just the comfort of someone familiar. Everything was to be simple. Everything was to be peaceful. That was the agreement. But life, as I was beginning to realize, rarely cooperates with human plans, even the most carefully curated ones. It started with a text from Mike, hesitant, awkwardly phrased, as though he were bracing himself for a storm I could not yet see. "Hey, so, about the hotel," he typed. "Courtney thinks the dog might be here by then, and they're worried about bringing him. Is there any chance we could book somewhere?" A dog, not an actual dog yet. A hopeful, hypothetical dog that might or might not exist, depending on whether a certain dog at a breeder's place became pregnant and had enough puppies. But already it was being presented as a potential wedge, a consideration that seemed to hover over our plans like a dark cloud. I remember staring at the phone for a long time, unsure if I should laugh or groan. Of course we could find another hotel. Of course we could accommodate. That was simple. That was easy. We had never wanted our friends to feel unwelcome, never wanted anyone to be left out. We rearranged, double-checked availability, and responded with warmth, trying to convey that no inconvenience would ever matter compared to having them with us. And then the messages started to twist. "Courtney says the dog probably won't manage the long drive," Mike explained, "so she might just stay home. But she wants to come to the wedding." I don't know what to do. And just like that, the calm we had built, the peace we had so meticulously curated, began to fracture. The world of adulthood is full of these little ironies. You plan for simplicity, but simplicity itself can be the most complicated thing to achieve. And as I stared at the text, a creeping feeling of disbelief began to settle in. A dog, a hypothetical dog, a friend's girlfriend, and suddenly a storm was gathering over the tiny Italian town we had imagined as our sanctuary. I texted back, carefully, gently, "We understand, Mike. It's okay if Courtney wants to stay home with the dog. Would you be able to come alone?" The reply came slowly. Hesitation lingered in every word. She said if I go without her, she'll end things. I don't know, it was like a punch to the stomach. My fiancé had been quiet as I read the message aloud, but I could feel the weight of disappointment settling over him. This was not just about the dog. It was about loyalty, about friendship, about the invisible lines that govern relationships and choices. And in that moment, I realized that even in the most carefully planned lives, even in the smallest of weddings, you cannot account for the complexity of human emotion. We both sat in silence, the sunlight warming the bedroom, yet inside the air felt heavy. 6 years of love and trust, a day meant to celebrate that love, and already, before a single plane ticket was booked, before a flower was chosen, a shadow had crept in. A shadow that carried with it questions of loyalty, priorities, and the strange power of a future dog who had not yet drawn its first breath. The wedding in Italy, our peaceful escape, was still months away, but the storm had begun. That morning, after reading Mike's message, I tried to focus on my daily routine, but my mind kept circling around one question. Could Mike actually come to the wedding without Courtney? Part of me wanted to believe he would find a way, but another part of me worried that a friendship that had lasted decades could be tested over something that, logically, shouldn't matter. We had helped Mike and Courtney build their new home, shared milestones and celebrations, laughed until our sides hurt. I remembered one night cooking dinner together in their empty kitchen, lights casting a soft glow on the walls, and thinking, this is family, not because of blood, but because of love and shared moments. And now, all of those memories were being challenged by a dog that didn't even exist yet. Mike called. His voice was hesitant, full of pauses, like he was trying to unload a storm he couldn't control. I really want to come, but Courtney, she won't. If I go without her, she'll end things. You understand? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. Mike, you don't owe her anything. This is our wedding. If she doesn't want to come, that's her choice. You can come alone, it's fine. There was a long silence. I could hear him struggling, his voice breaking occasionally. I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose her. My fiancé sat beside me, his hand on my shoulder, eyes full of worry. He understood. Mike had been his best friend since kindergarten. He had grown up with him. Now, he faced a choice where there really wasn't a right answer. We tried to find a temporary solution. Maybe someone could watch the dog for the weekend, I suggested, trying to be logical amid the chaos. There are plenty of friends or family who could help. Mike sighed. I asked, but Courtney won't let anyone. She said if I leave her alone with the dog, she ended. Frustration started to bubble up. This was the first time I realized just how controlling Courtney could be with Mike. A hypothetical dog, not even born yet, had become a wedge between friendship and loyalty. I wondered, could a lifelong friend really be swayed by something so absurd? Over the next few days, the messages became more intense. Courtney even texted me directly, in a casual tone but full of pressure. we really want to attend. If needed, you could change the date or location. We'd work around it." I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I looked at my fiancé, reading the quiet disappointment in his eyes. "No, we can't do that," he said. "It's not their wedding. It's ours. We chose Italy for a reason, but my heart still hurt. Frustration mixed with sadness, not because of Courtney, but because of Mike. He was caught between two loves, the long-term romantic relationship and a friendship that meant the world to him. I remembered all the moments we had laughed together, shared joy and sorrow, and I wondered if this friendship could really survive this test. One evening, my fiancé and I sat by the window, watching the golden city lights in the distance. We didn't speak much. Silence hung over us, not heavy, but tense, full of waiting. Every message from Mike felt like a stone dropped into the calm waters of our lives. Ripples of worry spread, touching fears we had never imagined before our small wedding. Then Mike called again, voice trembling more than ever. "Courtney said if I go alone, she'll break up with me. I can't go against her." I knew this was a critical moment. No one could force Mike. No one could force Courtney. But I also knew that if Mike stayed behind, our wedding would lose something important, the best man who had been part of my fiancé's life since childhood, who had seen him through every triumph and heartbreak. A part of me wanted to scream, "Go. Don't let a dog or any pressure ruin this friendship." But I stayed silent, choosing calm over confrontation, deciding we would not change our plans. The following days were tense. Every text, every call reminded us of the looming threat. I realized that peace isn't easy, it must be protected with determination, and sometimes with the pain of watching friends caught between love and loyalty. And in that moment, I understood the real challenge of a wedding isn't picking flowers or tasting cakes, it's boundaries, priorities, and the human heart's strength. The wedding was still ahead, but the first signs of a storm were unmistakable. A subtle, emotional storm was brewing, and no one knew how it would end. The days following Mike's messages felt like an endless autumn rain, slow, heavy, and suffused with tension. Every text, every call, every thought of him made my chest tighten. I realized that even a decades-long friendship could be tested by the most absurd reason: a new girlfriend, a hypothetical dog that didn't even exist, and the threat of a breakup Mike felt he couldn't ignore. My fiancé and I sat on the old sofa in our living room, the late afternoon sun fading, casting long shadows across the room. "He's going to have to make a decision," I said, voice heavy and tense. "There's no perfect choice. He'll have to choose between her and friendship, and loyalty to us." We decided to call Mike one more time, to talk things through directly. His voice trembled on the other end, full of pauses, like he was carrying a storm he couldn't control. I really want to go," Mike admitted. "But Courtney, she said if I go without her, it's over. You understand?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. "Mike, listen to me. This is our day. We can't change it just because of her or a dog that doesn't even exist. If you want to come, come. She'll have to understand that you have a choice too. You don't owe her anything." A long silence followed. I could imagine him standing there, exhausted, forehead creased, hands shaking around the phone. This wasn't just a choice between love and friendship. It was a test of boundaries, values, and the courage to do the right thing even when your heart is torn in two. After the call, Mike didn't reply to any messages. We waited, anxious but hopeful. Every phone ring made my heart race. Every text from him pushed the tension higher. I wondered if he had the courage to put friendship and the happiness of others above the pressure of a new relationship. One afternoon, Mike decided to meet us in person. He arrived, red-eyed, shoulders slumped as if he'd been through a storm of emotions. I really want to go, he said, voice shaking. But Courtney, she said if I go alone, she'll break up with me. I can't go against her. My fiancé placed a steady, empathetic hand on Mike's shoulder. Mike, you don't owe her anything. This is our wedding. If you want to come, come. If not, we understand, Mike cried. Truly cried. I watched him, remembering all the times we'd laughed together, faced hardships side by side since childhood. And now he was faced with the hardest choice: support a lifelong friendship and love for us, or stay to preserve his romantic relationship. He sighed, tears falling, his face full of anguish. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to hurt her. But I also don't want to leave you guys, miss this special day. Part of me wanted to scream, Mike, go. Don't let a dog or anyone's pressure ruin this friendship. But I knew that would only make him suffer more. I took my fiancé's hand, and together we looked at Mike with empathy. Mike, you have to choose what feels right for you. But remember, we love you for you not, whether you come or not. We just want you to be happy. Mike bowed his head, silent for a long moment. His sigh emphasized the pain he carried. Finally, he said, I think I have to stay. Not because I want to, but because a wave of emptiness washed over us. My fiancé sighed, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder, eyes full of sympathy and regret. I held back my tears, reminding myself this was not a failure, it was reality. People don't always make the choices we wish they would. Mike left, heavy-hearted but trying to smile. I'll remember that day, he said softly, as if afraid the wind might carry his words away. I really wanted to be there, but... We stood there in silence, the fading sunset casting golden shadows across the room. No longer just worried, we felt a quiet, deep sense of loss. Sometimes friendship and love can't coexist in the same moment, especially when outside pressures intervene. After a few minutes, my fiancé spoke gently. This is hard, but we still have each other, and the wedding will happen. Mike will live with his decision, and we'll still have an amazing day. I nodded, a mix of sadness and relief washing over me. We understood that Mike would learn a valuable lesson about personal boundaries, love, and friendship, and our wedding could still be full of meaning, peace, and joy, even if a best friend had to sacrifice what he wanted most. In that quiet moment, with the sun setting, I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of my fiancé beside me, and told myself the emotional storm had reached its peak. Mike had made the hardest decision of his life, but it also showed growth, love, and loyalty. We knew our wedding day would still be meaningful, peaceful, and complete. And deep inside, I believed that sometimes protecting your boundaries and prioritizing your own happiness is the most important thing, no matter how much it hurts your heart. After the emotional storm with Mike, my fiancée and I realized we needed a mental strategy to keep our wedding peaceful. It wasn't stubbornness or coldness. It was the understanding that this day belonged solely to us. No one had the right to manipulate our emotions or disrupt the happiness. we had imagined over the past 6 years. The next morning, we sat together on the balcony, watching the soft autumn sunlight filter through the trees. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and told myself, we need to maintain peace, and only peace will make everything feel complete. My fiancé placed a gentle hand over mine, a calm but determined smile spreading across his face. We've come too far to let anyone ruin it, he said. We started listing every possible scenario. Mike wouldn't come. Courtney wouldn't attend. There might be tense messages or calls from friends or family. But instead of worrying, we decided to prepare mentally for all outcomes. Peace, we realized, doesn't appear magically. It must be built with determination, preparation, and firm boundaries. One afternoon, we called Mike one last time. His voice trembled, but there was some relief knowing we held no grudges or demands. I'm really sorry, Mike said, his voice thick with emotion. I wanted to come, but Courtney, she set her boundaries, and I didn't know what to do. I inhaled deeply, emphasizing calm in my voice. Mike, I understand. You don't owe her anything, and you don't owe us anything either. I just want you to know that you will always be an important friend, whether you are here or not. The conversation ended in mutual understanding, and I felt a wave of relief. A heavy emotional burden had lifted, even though Mike still couldn't attend. We understood that sometimes love and friendship cannot coexist in the same moment. But that doesn't diminish their value or importance. We began to focus on ourselves and our upcoming day. Preparing for our wedding in Italy became a form of emotional healing. Every detail from choosing flowers and the cake to outfits was done with the awareness that this was our day alone. Everything felt more sacred when we realized that even if not everyone we cared about could attend, we still had each other, and that was enough. A week before the wedding, we received a message from a mutual friend of Mike and Courtney. They asked if they could attend instead of Mike, even bringing their small child. We happily accepted. At least there were familiar faces around us, bringing warmth and comfort. The wedding day arrived. The small Italian town felt serene. Morning light danced through windows, reflecting off the warm golden walls. We stood together, hand in hand, eyes locked with love and determination. No pressure, no tension from outside drama, just love, joy, and the presence of those who truly mattered. As we walked down the small aisle, I felt peace radiate through me. No whispers, no family pressures, no external drama. Just us, genuine smiles, and the realization that everything we had endured was worth it. During the vows and ring exchange, I thought of Mike, though he wasn't there. His friendship remained in my heart and my fiancée. We silently acknowledged that sometimes love doesn't need physical presence. It's about understanding, respect, and recognizing personal boundaries. After the ceremony, stepping outside the small church, the afternoon sun bathed the streets in light. I felt simple yet profound happiness. We had protected our day, preserved peace, and respected personal boundaries. No drama, no regrets, just pure joy. We sat together in a cozy cafe near the hotel, laughing and sharing simple, meaningful moments. I looked at my fiancée, knowing we had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes holding firm to yourself and prioritizing your own happiness is the best way to protect love and true joy. Life doesn't always go as planned. Not everyone can accompany us in every important moment, but we had learned how to live fully, peacefully, and cherish what truly matters. Our wedding wasn't just an event, it was proof of love, determination, and the ability to maintain peace in any circumstance. As the sun set, we stood side by side, hand in hand, breathing in the fresh air of the small town. Every passing moment reminded us that happiness isn't about a life without challenges, it's about how we face them and protect what matters. And deep inside, I felt a strong conviction. We will always have each other, no matter what storms come our way. The wedding was over, yet its echoes lingered in our hearts. The tension and stress were gone, leaving only peace and the valuable lessons we had learned from the challenges of the past few weeks. Looking back at Mike and Courtney's drama, I realized that friendship, love, and personal boundaries are delicate things. They require care, respect, and careful nurturing. After the wedding, we spent a few days wandering through the small Italian town. The cobblestone streets, tiny cafes, warm sunlight, and laughter of locals created a perfect backdrop for serenity. Every step we took, hand in hand, was filled with reflection on the past weeks, on Mike, on Courtney, and on how we had managed to preserve our special day without letting any drama intrude. What do you think Mike learned from all this? I asked, gazing at the small harbor where boats bobbed gently in the water. My fiancé smiled, his warm voice calm yet thoughtful. I think he learned the value of boundaries. You don't always have to please everyone, especially when it comes at the cost of your own happiness. Sometimes maturity is knowing how to stand by your choices, even when it's painful. I nodded, feeling a wave of relief. We were lucky to have learned how to maintain peace. Unfortunately, Mike, though heartbroken, had grown from the experience. Life sometimes puts us in imperfect situations, but how we respond defines everything. We began to see the wedding not just as a special day, but as a test of the values that truly matter: love, friendship, commitment, and the ability to protect our own happiness. Looking back, every conflict, every tense moment, every tear held meaning. They taught us how to grow, how to love responsibly, and how to preserve what is precious. One evening, we received a message from Mike. He wrote that he had talked honestly with Courtney about what happened, and though she was still a bit upset, he felt relieved to have maintained his boundaries. He also said that seeing our happiness made him realize that lifelong friendship never disappears, even if there is temporary distance. I read the message and smiled warmly. We had left space for friendship to continue. Even if Mike couldn't attend the wedding, we also took time to write handwritten letters to Mike and Courtney, not to scold or blame, but to share our feelings and positive messages. We love Mike and cherish this friendship. Even though he couldn't be here today, the friendship still lives in our hearts. We hope that everything will work out for both him and Courtney, and that each of you will learn something valuable from this experience. A week later, we received responses. Mike wrote that he was grateful for not being blamed, and that he had learned that sometimes not every desire can be fulfilled immediately. Courtney, after some reflection, sent a gentle apology, acknowledging that she had overreacted. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a first step toward learning how to balance love, responsibility, and personal growth. We also realized something crucial. Sometimes, maintaining peace doesn't mean forcing others to change. It means holding firm to your own boundaries and focusing on what truly matters. We learned to let go of what we couldn't control and emphasize what we could cherish. During our honeymoon, on the sunlit beaches of Italy, We laughed together, recalling the drama, with Mike and Courtney not to mock or resent, but to appreciate the growth we and everyone involved had experienced. Every moment was a lesson, learning to be firm, learning to prioritize your own happiness, learning to respect others' boundaries, and learning to treasure friendship and love in the right way. The most magical realization was that even though Mike couldn't attend, the friendship remained intact. Instead of anger or resentment, we found compassion and understanding. We recognized that life is never perfect, but our attitude determines our happiness. Back home, we started keeping a journal about the entire experience. Every line captured real emotion: sadness, disappointment, but also love and valuable lessons. We knew that those difficult days, though painful, had helped us grow, bond closer, and learn how to protect ourselves and each other. Finally, Part 5 closes with a profound realization. Love and friendship don't always coexist, but growth and peace are always achievable if we respect boundaries, focus on what's important, and let go of what we cannot control. We had faced a major challenge, protected our wedding day, and learned that happiness isn't a life without storms, it's how we navigate them and maintain our inner peace. Friendship endured, love remained radiant, and we knew that no matter the obstacles in the future, we would face them together, strong and peaceful. After our wedding in Italy, when we returned home, everything seemed to settle back into a normal rhythm, but inside, I still felt a lingering tension, as if the story hadn't fully ended. Even though the big day had passed peacefully, the relationship between Mike and Courtney remained a question mark. My fiancé and I decided to watch from a distance, careful not to interfere too much. This was a lesson they needed to learn on their own. Mike spent the first few days post-wedding in a whirlwind of emotions. He felt disappointed for missing his best friend's wedding and stressed by the pressure from Courtney and the responsibility of taking care of a future dog. During a long phone call with me, his voice cracked. I really wanted to go, but she put me in such a tough position. I don't know what to do. I stayed silent, listening, feeling the weight of his inner conflict. Sometimes, no advice is needed, just being heard is enough. Courtney, after weeks of stress and reflection, began to realize that her behavior had gone too far. She recognized that forcing Mike to choose between her and a lifelong friend was unfair and hurt everyone involved. Although she hadn't completely humbled herself or changed entirely, the awareness of boundaries and personal growth began to emerge in her actions. The changes were subtle, a message with less pressure, a gentle reminder that Mike had his own space, or allowing him some temporary distance. Meanwhile, my fiancé and I often talked about what we had learned from the situation. We realized that friendship and love don't always coexist perfectly, but if respect and tolerance are maintained, important relationships can endure. We decided to keep in touch with Mike while leaving enough space for both sides to process their feelings and maintain peace. One evening, Mike called. His voice was steady but lighter than before. I talked to Courtney. She's starting to understand boundaries. I feel better. At least I don't feel forced anymore. I smiled softly, warmed by the thought that Mike was beginning to find balance in his relationship. This was proof that, even without attending the wedding, he could still learn and grow as time passed. We noticed Mike changing. He became more proactive, confident in making personal decisions, and gradually learned to balance love and friendship. He rejoined small gatherings with old friends, without the previous sense of pressure from Courtney and demonstrated respect in all his choices. Courtney, while still independent in some ways, started learning to respect Mike's decisions. She eased off the pressure, realizing that a healthy relationship doesn't require controlling every small detail. She also began to understand that lasting love doesn't mean forcing someone to compromise constantly. From our perspective, we observed their growth and felt a sense of relief. We learned that every conflict, every tension, was an opportunity to mature. Mike and Courtney were taking steps to find balance, and we were learning to appreciate what belonged to us and maintain inner peace. Life became richer when we understood that everyone faces their own challenges, and each challenge is a lesson in growth, resilience, and valuing meaningful relationships. Over the next few months, Mike and Courtney gradually reintegrated with our friend group, attending small meets and showing more maturity in their communication and conflict resolution. We were happy to see that, although past drama had caused pain, they had learned to build healthier relationships. One afternoon, Mike texted me, "Thank you for not blaming me. I realize I need to grow and protect my boundaries. Seeing you guys happy makes me understand that lifelong friendship doesn't disappear. Even with temporary distance." I smiled, feeling the depth of this experience, learning to let friendship exist without overstepping, while still keeping love and respect intact. We also wrote handwritten letters to Mike and Courtney, not to blame, but to share positive feelings. We love Mike and cherish this friendship. Even though he wasn't here today, the friendship still lives in our hearts. We hope both of you can learn valuable lessons from this experience and grow stronger. A week later, Mike and Courtney responded. Mike expressed gratitude for not being blamed, and Courtney sent a gentle apology, acknowledging that she had overreacted. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a first step toward learning how to balance love, responsibility, and personal growth. The most important takeaway from this extended Part 6 is that peace and growth don't come from forcing others to change. They come from holding firm to your own boundaries, respecting others' emotions, and facing challenges maturely. During this time, my fiancé and I also realized that happiness doesn't depend entirely on anyone else. We protected our wedding day, maintained our peace, and learned to prioritize our joy and values. Everyone has personal challenges, and each challenge is an opportunity to grow. Part 6 closes with an image of us sitting together, reading cheerful messages from Mike, seeing him and Courtney gradually find balance. We smiled, feeling content, knowing that even though the story began with drama, it ended with growth, peace, and enduring friendship. A few months had passed since our wedding in Italy, and our lives were gradually settling back into their normal rhythm. But the echoes of the drama with Mike and Courtney remained vivid in my mind and in my fiancé's. Every text, every phone call, every small action reminded us that lasting relationships aren't only about love. They are about responsibility, respect, and personal growth. Mike, though he regretted missing such an important day, began learning to live with the choices he had made. He started questioning himself. What truly matters in love? In friendship? That question led him to set healthy boundaries, ensuring he didn't force himself to please others or lose his sense of self-worth for the sake of his partner. This was a crucial step in his personal growth, one that had been obscured by the pressure Courtney had placed on him before. Courtney went through a similar period of self-reflection. She began to realize that being overly controlling did not lead to long-term happiness. Instead, understanding and respecting the other person's boundaries formed the foundation of a healthy, lasting relationship. While it wasn't easy, she started challenging herself to give Mike space, accepting that he had his own choices, experiences, and priorities outside their relationship. One afternoon, Mike called us. His voice was a mix of excitement and reflection. "I've started reconnecting with old friends I had avoided before. This time, I feel more at ease because I don't feel the pressure to please anyone," he said. I smiled, noticing the profound change in him. It was a clear sign that sometimes challenges are the best way to grow and realize the true value of friendship. Meanwhile, my fiancé and I focused on nurturing our own happiness. We had learned that sometimes allowing others to handle their own problems is the best way to maintain peace for ourselves. Not every conflict needs to be resolved immediately, and not everyone is ready to understand or change. We chose to focus on enjoying our life together, cherishing quiet moments, and nurturing our love with trust and mutual respect. Mike began opening up to group activities again. He joined picnics, dinners with friends, and gradually learned to communicate honestly without fear of judgment. Courtney also adapted, giving Mike personal space while still maintaining a strong connection with him. This clearly illustrated that balancing individuality with the relationship is key to long-term love. During these months, I observed that Mike and Courtney no longer clashed over trivial matters. Instead, they began discussing feelings openly, setting their own boundaries, and learning how to truly listen to each other. Mike once confided to me, "I realized love isn't about sacrificing everything for someone else and losing yourself. It's about growing together." That statement resonated deeply with my fiancé and me. We realized that our story with Mike and Courtney was living proof that every relationship requires time, challenges, and personal growth to endure. Drama and tension aren't always negative. Sometimes they act as a test, revealing the real value of friendship and love. While Mike and Courtney regained balance, we also reflected on ourselves. We wrote in journals, noting every lesson we had learned, maintaining boundaries, not letting external pressure dictate our choices, and cherishing peaceful moments together. These journals became a spiritual keepsake, reminding us that happiness is a journey, not a destination. One day, Mike sent a message. "Courtney and I have discussed getting a dog. This time, we have a clear plan, knowing who will care for it and how, so it won't cause conflict or interfere with important events." I smiled quietly, recognizing their maturity in how they approached challenges. Past tensions had transformed into valuable lessons on growth, understanding, and personal responsibility. We realized that every conflict could become a lesson if handled thoughtfully. Mike and Courtney were learning to communicate honestly, respect each other's boundaries, and accept that compromise sometimes meant giving a little without losing oneself. From afar, we felt joy witnessing their transformation. Additionally, Mike began recognizing the importance of balancing his personal life with his relationship. He carefully managed his time between friends, family, work, and Courtney without feeling trapped in impossible choices. Courtney, while still independent, started learning to support rather than control, respecting Mike's growth and trusting his decisions. One evening, we received a message from Mike. "I feel like I'm becoming a better version of myself. I'm no longer afraid of facing challenges. I'm learning to navigate them without hurting others." I smiled, feeling the power of growth in action. The drama had become an opportunity to learn. and the stress had become a lesson in patience, empathy, and self-discipline. Part 7 concludes with an image of my fiancé and me sitting together in the living room, laughing as we read messages from Mike, watching him and Courtney gradually find balance. We felt peace, knowing the challenges had helped everyone mature. This story was not just about drama or tension, it was a lesson in maturity. Boundaries, love, and friendship, universal values that anyone can learn from. Time had moved on, and life seemed to have returned to a calm rhythm, but deep down, my fiancé and I still carried the echoes of the drama with Mike and Courtney. That whole episode had left a marked impression, constantly reminding us that every relationship, no matter how close, requires nurturing, maturity, and mutual respect. One evening, Mike called. His voice was a mix of tension, worry, and vulnerability. "I feel like I'm standing between two worlds," he confessed. "On one side is Courtney, and on the other are the values and friendships I don't want to lose. I don't know how to please everyone without losing myself." I listened quietly, offering no advice, just giving him space to unload his thoughts. Sometimes, just having someone truly listen is enough to lighten the emotional load. Courtney, after some reflection, began to recognize the controlling behaviors she had exhibited. She felt conflicted and sometimes frustrated with herself, but for the first time, she started to understand and appreciate Mike's need for freedom and personal choice, something she had rarely considered before. She didn't transform overnight, but she took her first steps toward acknowledging that love is about companionship, not domination. Meanwhile, Mike started learning how to stand firm in his emotions. He realized that love doesn't mean sacrificing oneself entirely. He discovered the power of saying no without guilt and began to understand that long-standing friendships are just as valuable as romantic relationships. I could see the growth in him through every word he spoke, every small decision he made. One afternoon, Mike called to share something special. "I want to try a weekend trip with our old friends, without Courtney. For the first time, I feel free and genuinely happy. I realize I can love and still maintain friendships." I smiled, relieved and proud, seeing him finding balance and reclaiming a sense of independence as Mike explored his freedom. Courtney went through her own learning curve. She began to understand that excessive control brings nothing but tension and loss. Gradually, she gave Mike the space he needed, embracing the idea that love is about walking side by side, not pulling in opposite directions. For my fiancé and me, this entire process became a valuable lesson. We realized that happiness isn't merely avoiding drama. It's about maintaining inner peace amidst life's challenges. Every time Mike and Courtney grew, we experienced a quiet but profound joy, understanding that friendship and love could coexist if each person respected both themselves and others. One day, Mike sent a text. "I feel like I'm becoming a better version of myself. I can love Courtney without losing who I am, and I can still cherish my friendships without feeling torn." I felt a warm pride swell within me. This was living proof that conflict, when handled wisely, can become an invaluable opportunity for growth. Courtney, while still independent and strong, began learning to support Mike without trying to control him. Recognizing that every healthy relationship needs respect and personal space, she slowly understood that sustainable happiness does not come from dominance, but from mutual understanding, empathy, and growth together. The emotional climax came when Mike decided to host a small get-together with old friends, a situation that tested his newfound maturity. For the first time, he participated without fear of Courtney's disapproval. We saw firsthand that establishing boundaries allows both friendship and romantic love to coexist. We also witnessed a remarkable shift. In Mike and Courtney's relationship, conflicts were no longer battles, but opportunities to learn about and from each other. They began discussing feelings openly, negotiating boundaries, and finding compromises without losing themselves. This was a significant step forward, proving that drama, when addressed thoughtfully, can transform into a profound lesson about growth, honesty, and communication. Another evening, Mike texted, "I've realized that no one can grow for me. Each person must take responsibility for themselves, love themselves, and respect others." I smiled, recognizing the ultimate lesson the story had offered. A healthy relationship depends on maturity, mutual boundaries, and respect. As the next month passed, the lessons from the drama with Mike and Courtney began to show their subtle but undeniable effects. Life, in its usual rhythm, carried on around us. Yet, there was a quiet undercurrent, a sense that things were shifting, evolving in ways we hadn't fully anticipated. Even though the events were behind us, the question lingered: could everything truly return to normal? Or were we stepping into an entirely new dynamic that would require patience, understanding, and deliberate effort? One thing became increasingly clear: every relationship, no matter how strained, carries the potential to heal if everyone involved is willing to reflect, learn, and grow. Mike, in particular, seemed transformed in small but meaningful ways. Over the following weeks, he began actively seeking ways to rebuild his relationship with us, without compromising his balance with Courtney. His calls became less frequent in tone and more deliberate in content. He shared updates about how he and Courtney were testing new boundaries, the methods they were exploring to respect each other's individuality, and the ways he was reclaiming his personal freedom while still nurturing old friendships. There was a newfound calm in his voice, a confidence that wasn't about boasting or proving himself, but rather about quietly owning his choices and accepting their consequences. For the first time in months, I could sense Mike genuinely content with the life he was crafting for himself. Courtney, too, entered a period of introspection. Her previous controlling tendencies had created tension and hurt, and she began to acknowledge that openly. There were moments when the acknowledgement came hesitantly, her pride subtly resisting, but she pushed through the discomfort, understanding that growth often requires facing unpleasant truths. She offered her apologies, not in fleeting words, but with weight and sincerity, admitting the mistakes she had made and the pain she had caused. It was a turning point for her, as she not only recognized her past errors, but also began to actively respect the feelings and boundaries of those around her. This newfound awareness was reflected not just in her words, but in her actions. She listened more, interrupted less, and approached conversations with a gentle attentiveness that had been absent before. One afternoon, Mike called my fiancée. The tone of his voice was shaky, but unmistakably genuine. "I want to apologize for all the tension that happened," he said. "Courtney has learned a lot, and so have I. We want to maintain our friendship with you without complicating things further." My fiancé felt a subtle wave of relief wash over him. For the first time in months, the invisible weight of worry and lingering conflict began to lift. There was no grand declaration of peace, no dramatic gestures, just a quiet, steady acknowledgement that healing was possible. We arranged a small get-together at our home, keeping it intimate with just the four of us. There was no fanfare, no expectations, only the shared desire to reconnect without the shadows of past conflicts. The atmosphere was a delicate mix of tension and warmth. Smiles were tentative at first, but gradually the conversation flowed more naturally. Courtney, initially reserved, eventually turned to me and said, "Thank you for being patient with us. I know I made mistakes, and I genuinely want to make things right." I smiled, understanding that a sincere apology doesn't demand immediate forgiveness, but it does open the door to reconciliation. Over the next few weeks, Mike and Courtney continued to demonstrate their commitment to change. They communicated more openly, without fear or judgment, sharing moments of success and challenge alike. They spoke candidly about the lessons they had learned, the importance of respecting each other's boundaries, maintaining friendships outside their romantic relationship, and balancing love with personal space and social connections. Their growth was not theoretical, was tangible, visible in their interactions and in the way they navigated everyday decisions together. One evening, Mike shared a small yet profoundly meaningful moment. "Today, we made decisions about getting a new dog without arguing. We both understood our responsibilities and respected each other's choices." That simple event, almost mundane in its essence, spoke volumes. It was a demonstration of applied learning, of patience, compromise, and mutual respect. Observing this, I felt a quiet sense of pride, not in them alone, but in all of us, in the way relationships, even when strained, can mature into something healthier and more resilient. For my fiancé and me, this journey became a valuable lesson in patience, empathy, and the importance of allowing others the space to navigate their own challenges. We realized that sometimes the best way to help is simply to observe, to offer support without interference, and to trust that people can grow from their own experiences. In watching Mike and Courtney evolve, we also discovered that friendship and love are not static. They are living entities that require care, understanding, and the willingness to forgive, not as a favor, but as a conscious act of recognizing shared humanity in the quiet moments after our get-togethers. I would reflect on how far we had all come. The lingering tension had given way to laughter, small shared stories, and moments of genuine connection. The drama that once threatened to fracture our friendships now served as a reminder that even the most complicated relationships can emerge stronger, provided everyone is willing to confront their flaws, embrace discomfort, and commit to growth. It was not a perfect resolution. Life rarely offers that, but it was real, and it was enough. The months following our wedding in Italy brought more than just memories of that magical day. They brought clarity, growth, and a profound understanding of what truly matters in relationships, friendships, and life itself. For my fiancé and me, the story with Mike and Courtney had become a living lesson. Sometimes, the most painful conflicts can ultimately lead to the most meaningful growth. Mike and Courtney had changed, not overnight, and not without effort, but with persistence, reflection, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Mike had learned to assert his boundaries without guilt. He had learned to protect his friendships and his autonomy while nurturing his relationship with Courtney. Courtney, in turn, began to understand that love is not control, it is partnership, trust, and the freedom to be oneself. One crisp morning, Mike called to share something that filled my heart with warmth. "We've finally found a balance," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Courtney and I can make decisions together without tension. We respect each other's needs, and I've realized how much my friendships matter to me too. His words were simple but heavy with meaning. In that moment, I felt relief, pride, and gratitude for him, for Courtney, and for the lessons we had all learned. Courtney also reached out personally, not to reopen old wounds, but to acknowledge growth. I know I made mistakes, and I've learnt from them. I respect your friendship and your peace, and I want to honor that, she said. I could sense sincerity in her tone, even if our friendship with her would never be exactly as it might have been before. I recognized that people can evolve when they are willing to confront themselves honestly. A few weeks later, Mike visited us, and we shared coffee on our balcony, overlooking the city skyline as the morning sun spilled across rooftops in shades of gold and pink. There were no tense apologies, no unspoken grudges, just laughter, conversation, and a genuine sense of ease. They spoke about the dog they had adopted, a little bundle of energy that had become a symbol of their newfound maturity, planning, responsibility, and cooperation rather than control or fear. Watching them interact, seeing the patience and teamwork they displayed, I felt a quiet swell of hope, proof that growth, however gradual, was real and lasting. As we talked, I realized that this entire journey, from the disappointment and tension surrounding our wedding to the difficult choices and emotional upheavals, had been transformative. Mike and Courtney's challenges mirrored our own in subtle ways. They reminded us that even in love and friendship, growth often comes from discomfort, reflection, and the courage to make hard decisions. Life settled into a rhythm filled with laughter, quiet mornings, and shared dreams. My fiancé and I learned that our wedding, though intimate, had ripple effects far beyond our Italian adventure. It had tested friendships, revealed character, and ultimately helped everyone involved confront their own weaknesses and strengths. We cherished each small moment, walking hand in hand through local markets, sipping coffee at sunrise, exchanging smiles over private jokes. Peace was no longer something we chased, it had been consciously created, nurtured, and maintained. Mike and Courtney, while still learning and growing, began to operate from a place of mutual respect. Conflicts were addressed directly, boundaries were communicated clearly, and compromises were genuine rather than coerced. It was living proof that even the most dramatic situations could evolve into lessons about communication, empathy, and emotional intelligence. One evening, we received a group text from Mike. "We just want to thank you again for giving us space to grow. We've learned so much about patience, respect, and love. Seeing you two so happy reminds us that peace and joy are possible, even after conflict." My fiancé and I read the message together, exchanging a quiet smile. The words summed up everything we had hoped for: harmony, understanding, and mutual growth. As the seasons changed, so did the texture of our lives. Autumn brought crisp walks along tree-lined streets, winter brought quiet evenings by the fireplace, and spring painted our world with blooms and new beginnings. Each season reminded us of the importance of patience, the subtle beauty of resilience, and the quiet strength that comes from emotional honesty. The final months brought a calm, enduring joy. Mike and Courtney continued to grow together, balancing independence with connection, learning to celebrate each other's individuality while nurturing shared dreams. My fiancé and I relished our own shared life, grateful for the storm we had weathered and the clarity it had brought. The dog, now a lively, joyful part of Mike and Courtney's lives, became a symbol that even small, everyday moments carry lessons about patience, empathy, and cooperation. One late summer evening, the four of us gathered at our apartment once again. We brought blankets, takeout from our favorite local restaurant, and a bottle of wine. The sun was setting, spilling warm hues of gold, amber, and purple across the skyline. Laughter floated easily in the air, punctuated by playful teasing and quiet, comfortable silences. The dogs sprawled happily at our feet, occasionally nudging for attention, reminding us of the patience, compromise, and care that had gone into raising it. Mike raised his glass, smiling with a quiet pride. "To growth," he said simply. Courtney nodded beside him, her eyes reflecting both humility and joy. My fiancé and I clinked glasses with them, feeling the warmth of friendship fully restored, matured, and tempered by shared experience. In that moment, I realized how far we had all come. The pain, the tension, the misunderstandings, all of it had forged bonds stronger than we could have imagined. We lingered into the evening, sharing stories, making plans for future adventures, and quietly celebrating each other's victories, big and small. There was no need for grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Every laugh, every glance, every small act of kindness carried weight, a testament to the growth we had achieved. It was a living, breathing proof that even the most dramatic challenges could evolve into moments of profound connection. As darkness fell and city lights twinkled below, I felt a deep, enduring peace. Weddings, friendships, and conflicts are rarely just single events. They are catalysts for growth, reflection, and understanding. That evening, watching our friends laugh, seeing the dog chase shadows in the warm lamplight, holding my fiancé's hand and feeling the quiet joy in our hearts, I realized that this was the culmination of everything we had hoped for. A life fully lived, relationships nurtured with honesty and care, and the knowledge that growth, love, and peace are not just possible, they are achievable when met with patience, courage, and compassion. And as we all sat there, the four of us and the little dog curled at our feet, I understood a truth that felt both simple and profound. Happiness is not the absence of conflict, it is the ability to navigate it, to learn, to forgive, and to grow together. In that golden twilight, I knew that the journey was far from over, but it was ours, beautiful, resilient, and fully lived.